If you're in the market for a Mazzer espresso grinder, you've probably realized that there are several models to choose from. When deciding which machine is best suited for your home or business, it's important to choose a grinder that's powerful enough to meet the demand, yet small enough to maintain efficiency and quality. Let's take a look at which Mazzer is right for you. Hey, I'm Steve from Prima Coffee Equipment, and today we're going to go through Mazzer's entire line of grinders. So Mazzer's basically come in two different flavors. We have the timer doser version and the electronic doserless. So the timer version has just a simple on-off switch, but it has a timer built in, so you can set it to run for 5, 10, 15 seconds, whatever you need to fill up your dosing chamber. From there, you can stick your portafilter right underneath, sweep your dosing lever, dispense the coffee that you want. It's great, if you need to hold a couple of doses at a time, you can do that. With the doserless, the electronic versions, you actually have timed dosing, but because you don't have a dosing chamber, you're basically dosing directly into a portafilter. With the electronic settings, you can adjust and store doses for singles or doubles. You can go in, manually control the amount of time that it takes to dose out your desired weight or volume to fill your portafilter basket. The timer versions are going to be a little bit less expensive, a little more economical for cafes or home users. And the electronic versions are going to be a little bit more precise, a little bit more adjustable for anyone who wants precision in their espresso craft. So starting off, we're going to have the Mazzer Mini, the most diminutive Mazzer grinder, but it's still small but powerful. It can grind about 1 gram per second. It's really good for cafes who need a decaf grinder or have just a low volume. So you're talking about 20 seconds for a 20 gram dose. Good for a decaf grinder or a single origin espresso grinder, something that's not going to see a ton of use throughout the day, but still going to give you great consistency for your shots. Moving up, we have the Super Jolly, which is a little bit more of a more recognizable grinder. You see it in a lot of cafes across America. Grinds a little bit faster, can do 20 grams in about 12 seconds. Pretty good as a main grinder for a cafe that has a somewhat intermediate throughput of espresso drinks, or just as a seasonal or guest espresso grinder against whatever else you have that's a little bit more powerful. Both of these grinders are actually also not unheard of to be found in somebody's home. An espresso enthusiast wants to have a really decent, well put together espresso grinder. They might choose a Mazzer Mini or a Super Jolly. Both are compatible with a short hopper to cut down on their size, which makes them real great to just fit on your kitchen counter. Moving on, we have the industry standard, the Mazzer Major. This is kind of a beast of a grinder. It's a real hard worker. It can do 20 grams in about 5 seconds. You're talking about 4 grams per second. Comes in both the doser and doserless versions, of course. But with that power and with that speed comes a little bit more of a demand on what your cafe situation might be like. This is going to be for a pretty steady cafe. You're doing a couple drinks an hour at least. And one of the important considerations is the factor of grind retention. In our test, we found that it holds on to about 5, maybe 6 grams of coffee in between each grinding cycle. So you want to make sure that either you're working pretty steadily or you're purging in between grind sessions, just to get rid of those stale grinds so they're not sitting around and affecting the quality of your drink. Now here's where espresso really starts to get serious. This is the Mazzer Coney. This is their lower end, but not low end, conical burr. Now with a conical burr set, we actually get pretty similar performance to the Major with lower RPMs and smaller burrs. So we're putting out about the same amount of coffee, retaining the same amount of coffee, but through performance throughout the day, the grinding chamber and the ground coffee is actually going to remain somewhat cooler. A flat burr spinning really fast is going to generate a lot of heat, especially if you have a high production environment. But with conical burrs, because the RPM is much lower, the effects on the coffee is going to be less dramatic. You're not going to see as much heat, and coffee being kind of an organic material like cellulose, like wood, it'll expand and contract with heat. So, if your grinder's heating up, that means that your shots are going to heat up. They're going to pull a little bit differently. So with the Coney, you start to see a little bit more consistency due to that lower volume. Same thing though, you're talking about maybe 5-6 grams of retention. You got to make sure that you're purging your grinder in between sessions. So if you have a big rush and then you're cooling off, The next time a customer walks in, you probably want to purge 5-6 grams. That's a decent portion of a dose, so you don't want that working into your espresso. Finally, we have the Mazzer Rober. This is an absolute beast of a grinder. 20 grams in just 3 seconds. That you hardly see that except in a machine this size. It's a whopping 62 pounds, again, a conical burst head, lower RPMs, but this is one of the most reputable grinders you'll see in a lot of specialty cafes. It's a workhorse. It's going to put out consistent grinds, it's going to put them out fast, it's going to put them out consistently, but at the same time, if you're not doing a high volume at a very high frequency, you probably want to kick it down to something like a Major or a Coney. The Rober is not going to be for everybody. But as it is, it's a real high performer, and there's a reason it's the top of the line of the Mazzer grinders. Our sales team at Prima Coffee are experts, and we want to help you find out the grinder that's right for you and your situation. So give us a call or visit us at primacoffee.com. Thanks.